Okay, so this is May 15th for the third distance learning packet, and we're going to use what we learned about square roots and cube roots to now solve equations. All right, let's take a look. So remember, a square root is the inverse operation for squared. So anytime we have an exponent of 2, and that's on our variable, the way that we can get rid of that exponent is to do the inverse operation, which is the square root. So we want to solve for p, not p squared. So we take the square root of both sides. Okay, so what that does is basically it cancels out. Okay, there's extra steps if we wanted to show that, but we will get p and then square root of 36. Okay, square root of 36, it's one of our perfect squares, so it's going to be 6. But this is where we have to be a little careful because we can have positive 6, because 6 times 6 is 36, or we could have negative 6, because negative 6 times negative 6 is also 36. So remember, a square root is just one of two equal factors that equal that number. Okay, so we have a plus version and a negative version of that same number. So it's two answers actually. So p equals plus or minus 6. You could also just write it out twice. So p equals 6 or p equals negative 6. Whichever way, but that's why we have this plus or minus symbol to shorten up our answers. Okay, so that's the same for all of the square roots. Even if it's on the right side like number 2, we just do the same thing. Okay, but we get plus or minus 5 equals r. Okay, so that's it. Now we move to, we have one cube root. Okay, so this time we need to take the cube root on both sides. Okay, for cube root, we do not need to put the plus or minus. It will be one or the other. So on the left, we have m. Okay, what's the cube root of 8,000? Remember, we need a number. When we multiply it by itself 3 times, we will get 8,000. So forget about the number being large and forget about the zeros for a moment. So what about just 8? Can we think of a number that we can multiply by itself 3 times to get 8? So I'm just going to start at the top. So 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. Okay? 2 times 2 times 2 is 2 times 2 is 4 times 2 is 8. Well, there we go. So 8. That's a good start. So what if I did, to get all those zeros, what if I started with 20? 20 times 20 times 20. Okay, well, 20 times 20, that's a 4 with those 2 zeros, so it's 400 times 20. 4 times 2 is 8, and then we put those 3 zeros behind it. So 8,000. So there we go. So it's 20. And it has to be positive. We can't have a negative. So if we multiply negative 20 times negative 20 times negative 20, we would get negative 8,000. So it's a little bit different than the square roots. Okay, so we can only have the positive or the negative. We don't have both. Okay, so let's move to the fraction. So this is just back to square roots, but with a fraction instead. So it's no big deal. We just split it up into a numerator and denominator, and that's all we have to do. So I'm going to do number 7. So again, square root of both sides. Okay, so on the left, we have just w equals, and I'm going to split that up. So square root of 36, and then square root of 100. Okay, I'm going to move it over. W equals, so square root of 36 is 6. Square root of 100 is 10. So plus or minus 6 over 10. Now, can we simplify 6/10? If we divide the numerator by 2 and the denominator by 2, we get w equals plus or minus 3 over 5. And that's our final answer. Okay, so fractions, we just have to do it for the numerator and the denominator. Okay, next we have very similar but word problems, but otherwise the idea is the same. So I'll do a couple of these as an example. Let's do maybe number 1. So it says we have a large picture window in a living room, and the window is square. Okay, the window is square. I'm just going to draw a picture. So we have a square window. The area is 49 square feet. So the area is 49 square feet. How long should each side of the window be? Okay, so 49 square feet. So remember, area is this side times this side. So what numbers that have to be the same will we multiply together to get 49? Can we think of one? Okay, so 7. So if we take 7, if each side is 7 feet, 7 times 7, 7 times 7, and that equals 49. Okay, so each side must be 7 feet. Okay, so that's it. Number 3. If the volume of a cube is 12,167 cubic inches, what is the length of a side of the cube? Okay, so we have a cube, perfect squares on all sides. Okay, that's not perfect, but you get the idea. So the side times the side times the side, those are all the same number. So what number, and remember the volume is going to be for a cube is side times side times side. Or length times, think of it, length times width times height. Okay, so what number will we multiply by itself 3 times to get 12,167? Okay, so we did 20 times 20 times 20 on a previous problem, and that was 8,000. So it has to be bigger than that because we got to get up to 12,000. So again, I'm gonna guess maybe 20, I don't know, 22. 22 times 22 times, 22 times 22 times 22. So let's multiply 22 times itself. 22 times 22 times 22 equals 10,648. Okay, that's not enough, right? We need 12,000. So let's try 23 times 23 times 23. See what we get. 23 times 23 times 23. Oh, there it is. 12,167. Okay, so 23, each side is 23, and then we said it's cubic inches, so each side is 23 inches. So the length of each side is 23 inches. All right. And that is it for this day.